Hello, world. Welcome to the 30th episode of the Podcast Monitor app. Last time we added some scoring methods and we created the unit tests, or we played around with unit tests to verify that different episodes could be equated even if the values weren't exactly the same. We're going to kind of tweak the scoring this time and kind of get everything finalized and maybe add another test to kind of test the limits of what this is like. So let's get started. We have these 4 scoring methods for each attribute. This one should be score sec here. And basically, they give different values, so we normalize it between a range that we've determined. Titles 0 to 50, 0 to 350. These use the diff match patch. This is just the difference in time goes 0 to 1,000. And then the MP3 either matches or it doesn't. And then we basically just sum them up, divide by 4 to get the total score out of, since these are all from 0 to 1, total score 0 to 1. Anything below 0.25 is considered equal, and we then return it. So let's real quick, we'll run the unit tests. Let's just run all the unit tests first. All right, all 50 tests pass. And this one is episode equality test. And so if we run that, all right, so we're printing out the information here. See that these match perfectly, all zeros. This is the same episode on different feed. So we get a raw difference of 5. When we normalize it, we get 0.1. Right, I think we're printing, and then the cap, and then it stays under the cap. Something like this is over the cap, so it goes to 1. All of these are 1 because it's completely different, so we get a 1.0. All right, so that's kind of what we're looking at right now. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add weights. And I was kind of thinking about some different, well, actually, I guess the first thing, let's let's commit that. All right, so now we're going to add in the weights here, and we have to determine kind of what weights we want. So the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to throw the weights actually into a dictionary. And I'm going to say, so let's go title. So right now we're adding them all up and we're dividing by 4, which means we're basically, this is 1 over 4 for each one, so it's 0.25. So if we do this, we'll get the exact same score that we're currently calculating. So let's start with that. Now this is the other thing where, okay, that's good. And these match all these up here too. What I'm gonna do is there? I'm gonna check. Is there a simple way to get, other than just doing like comprehension, Python? So let's see if there's a simple way to do this. All right, so yeah, just values, as opposed to creating like a list comprehension or something. Okay. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to raise exception, or no, so we'll do if some weights values is not equal to 1, so we're going to add this exception in because otherwise the math, if someone comes in, right, and changes these, the math is going to be wrong. And so we just want to immediately, I think that's it, like normally, right, so we don't really have a lot of exceptions for things. And this is a good spot to kind of add in an exception. The other thing I'm going to do is I am going to add a test for it because, well, I guess the test should catch it. Here, so let me run the test again. Okay, now let me adjust this. Run it again. Yeah, so we get the exception. So there's no need to test specifically for it. So, I mean, we could add a test. So therefore, like, oh, let's say you said, oh, we're going to remove this, and then you end up changing something. A test would catch it, but I'm going to leave it at how it is like this. But yeah, so if we ran it right here and everything, you get 0.8878. Previous time we had 0.8878. So it looks like everything is good. Everything is equal there. Or we're not using the weights. So I guess let's do that and we'll see if we get this 0.8878. So here, we'll say total score is actually going to be equal to weights, title, times score title, plus weights description, score description, weights length sec, times score, plus weights mp3 times score. Get rid of those. Let's run it again. Yeah, we get the same value here, so we're good with this. Let's commit this. Okay. So I was kind of thinking about different kind of scoring mechanisms, I guess you could say. So I'm just going to add them in a comment, kind of. So okay, so the first one I was thinking was the description. So 0.40, title 0.20. 2.5 and 0.15. And so if you order these, right, so I think the description is the most important, and then the length and, or, did I get that right? No, I got those backwards. 1.5, 2.5. So I think the description is the most important, and then the MP3, then the title, then the length the second. The reason for that being is that it seems like so far the descriptions essentially match exactly when the episode is the same. That's what I have found so far, and so I think it makes sense to weigh that the most. Same thing with the MP3. When the episodes do match, those are the same. The title isn't going to match, right? When we're actually looking across, that one actually, unless they are exactly the same, right, most of the time it is going to be different because it's going to mention the feed it's on. And the length in second, I actually think is, like, while it could match, and it has, there have been those cases where, they have different lengths due to the commercials, the advertisements that are put on there. And so I think it's kind of the least reliable. So this is kind of how I would order them. And then the description, if it doesn't match, it is a very long thing, and it should hopefully say a very similar type of thing. So I'm hoping that giving that more weight helps. Giving this one enough weight that if they do match, right? Because again, this one, the MP3 is either a 0 or a 1, right? And so this will put it down to kind of a 0.25, which is the exact threshold, by the way. So that's why we might want to adjust the threshold or adjust this. So I was thinking of some other ones. I was like, okay, so I could drop this to 0.35, keep this at 0.25, add the 0.25 here, 0.15. So it kind of evens it out slightly by making the description a little less valuable, the title more, but kind of still keeping this order. And the last one I was thinking about was, okay, well, I could update this actually to 0.5, make this 0.2, 0.15, 0.15. So these were kind of different possibilities of what I was thinking. And I figure actually the best thing to do might just be to kind of test them out and look at this, kind of inspect it, and see what is the best. So let's add these in here. And let's rerun this. So right now we're getting, okay, when we look at it, we're comparing, these are exactly the same. So these have zeros. This is a very low score. This is less than 0.1, right? For the ones that are in different feeds, that should match. Same thing with this, less than 0.1 for those which are on different feeds but do match. And then for these, which are different episodes, so these last ones, these are between 0.88 and 1.0. So let's run with the updated scoring and see what we get. So everything still passes, and so we get still 0, 0. This is a 0.02. This is a 0.02. This is a 0.28. And this value is a little lower, so it looks like this might be a little worse. So here, hold on, let me come over here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to write these down, and again in the comments. So here we get 0.0, 0.0, 0.0. Here we get 0.25, 0.035, 1.0, 0.995, 0.945, and 0.888. Okay. So now if we look at the more recent one, we get 0, 0. Now we have a 0.02 and a 0.028. So actually these are closer. So these are more of a match with this updated scoring. And that's because the descriptions match exactly and they're weighted higher now, right? The title is weighted less. And then we get 1.0, 0.996, so these are also, with the exception of this one, it looks like this one is the only one that's lower actually. So so these are actually closer. and are technically better scores. Now, you don't want to obviously overfit, right? We're testing for very specific things. And so the fact that these dropped a little bit, right, to 0.02 and 0.028, and 0.0 or no, 996, 956, 885, right? So we don't want to overfit the data, but since we're just kind of spot checking things, so we'll try out some of the other ones too. So now if we decrease this to actually there and add a little bit to the title, I don't think this one's going to be as good. And so if we look at it, we still get 0, 0. We're back to that 0.25, 0.35. We get a 1. We get a 0.995, 945. So this, only this one is actually different than the original, which is interesting. I guess that's 0.25, 0.25. So it's really based off of the description is weighted more and length of seconds is weighted less. So yeah, that one didn't do any better. In fact, it lowered the score on this one. So that one's just objectively worse. So now let's try this one with the 0.5, 0.2, 0.15, 0.15. Let's see how this one compares. All right, so here we have 0, 0. Now we're at 0.015, 0.021. So these are now minimized. So we made these even closer by relying more on the description. And what do we rely more on the description, less on the MP3, and then just a little bit, and less on the title. Okay, so then we're looking at 1.0, 0.997, 0.967, and 0.887. So basically, these are kind of like optimal values in that sense. So I think we're going to go with this last one. I think it's the cleanest overall. Or clean. I think it's so. Let's go git command adjusted weights. Okay. So now the question about the threshold, right? So these are zeros and these are very low, right? And these are very high. So the question is, okay, well, we could drop the threshold, right? We could drop it to 0.1 and this would still work, right? It would still get everything correct. Oops. Actually, give me that. All right. And we could raise it up to 0.8 and it would still get everything correct. So what is the right value, right? Do we just say 0.5? Do we just stick it in the middle? Since we have been able to kind of draw these things apart. So we kind of have these two things. So we could just put it somewhere in the middle, right? And with this, right, let's say they uploaded, completely the same title, MP3, time, but the description was different, right? So or the description is exactly the same, but these are all like completely different. It would still kind of get it right. So what kind of margin of error do we want? And I think the best thing to kind of do with that is to actually similarly create some fake data. And so I'm going to take let's do the mystery crate. So this is from the main feed, and this is from the mystery crate feed. So let's do it from the mystery crate feed. And I'm going to create this too. And let's take this string here, pull it down. I'm gonna add in this is MC2, MC2. So let's add that in. And then, okay, so let me just get this so I can see it on the screen a little better. Okay, and so I'm just going to basically rewrite it in kind of my own words to make it pretty different, but say the same thing. So the crew starts the show with a flawless promo. Then talks about bad dates to be born on, double bubble, actors who always seem to play themselves. So right, there's like some things that are pretty similar, but and then I'm just completely rewriting other things. Assigning rich people different character traits and brackets for March Madness. Then they get into the claim that the Florida Panthers 50-50 raffle is fake. They do show prep. George discuss the George Toma interview and they recount a Twitter battle between Fuentes and Tony. And then I'm just gonna leave there. I'm not gonna add this part at the end, just to make it even more different, even though that is basically always there anyway. But all right, so now let's make this one line. Okay, so we'll come in here. Okay, and then we'll replace the description. Okay. And we can get rid of this. All right, so now basically they would be exactly equal, except we've changed the description. So let's see how that affects whether or not they're considered equal. So with that huge change in description, we get a raw value of a 252. So it's considered pretty different. Even though it says the same thing, relatively speaking, it's pretty different. But that with that 0.5 now, right, it's still below the threshold. So even though someone completely rewrote the description, it's pretty different. Let's say they added 5 minutes more worth of ads. So 5 minutes times 60, 300. So this is going to be 31. So now let's run this again. And so now we get the 300, so that's a 0.3. And that bumps it up now from 0.36 to 0.0. Now, I think if we changed this, it would be different. So let's say 3, 7, 4, blah, blah, blah. All right. And that's, I think, the same length. Even though it doesn't need to be the same length, but that's fine. So we got 4, 3, 3. Okay. All right. So now that's going to add, what, 0.15? So that might put it close. So see, yeah, now it fails because now we get, this is a 1. This is 0.15. And the length in seconds, or no, the MP3 is 0.2. So that actually increases it a decent amount. But still, with the, if it was just, if it was just this, right? So this is 0.2 and this 0.72. But if this was 0, I believe we would be below the threshold. No, but it's close. It's just the description is far enough off. So I guess that's like, okay, so this is kind of where we want to consider. Okay, so the description's different, but it's similar. So if that was different and they had a completely different MP3, right, but even with the title the same and this the same, you know, it is the same thing. So I guess then the question becomes, right, so let's look at the description. So this is 252. Well, these other episodes are completely different, and they're at 305, 368, 377, 377. So let's see. I'm going to add this back in. I'm going to add that 5 minutes off still. And let's add this back in. I'm going to see now if I can kind of get it close enough that it will pass. Okay, so see, just by adding that back in, we went from, so it wasn't this 0.56, it was from this 0.605 to 0.53. So actually pretty close. So we could probably, so let's do this. Double bubble, actors, traits to rich people. So we'll say, well, this should have been then. So let's do that first and see what that from 0.53. Still very similar because there's just one letter. And the claim that the Florida Panthers raffle is fake. So let's remove these extra thes. How does that help? Oh, we're so close. Okay, so I think if I just... What if I reorder these? Will that do it? Yep, that brings it down. Just by changing the names, we dropped from just about 0.5 all the way down to that. What if I do Mike Fuentes and here? What does that put it at? Still a little bit over. So the order definitely matters here. The way the module kind of picks it up, right? I think it's probably because the order of them being kind of further apart and separate, as opposed to the missing word, just kind of counts more. All right. So hey, well, it passes, right? We added 5 minutes to the length in seconds. We made this unequal, and we wrote a new description that says that they're doing kind of the same thing, right? But we do have the same title, and I mean that if we what if we remove this? Well, let's do it. Gets it close. So even with all of this difference, right, it still passes. And so I'm going to add a comment here. It still passes at this threshold of 0.5. The other ones aren't even close, right? The other ones are significantly above it. And so I think I kind of like having them at 0.5 as a threshold, because while these other ones very clearly match, basically in kind of the worst case, using that 0.5 in these weights, it still kind of matches. So I do like that. So get status diff. So we'll say git add episode git commit -m updated threshold. Did that one also have a change in the weights, or no? I guess the weights were all were already determined. What was that? Git log 1 line. Yeah. All right. And then so we say git commit am added fake data of scoring. Okay. And that passes. So let's just run all the tests again. Make sure everything passes, and it does. So now we'll come in and let's kind of clean this up. Get rid of all these extra comments. Don't need the print here. Threshold. There. And then let's get rid of these prints. And these prints. All right. Yep. All right. Nothing prints. Everything passes. So we are good. So we'll say git commit am Okay, so that then works there. And so we have all this prototyping that we'll be able to kind of get rid of. And so I think that's what we'll do next time. Basically, so next time I will commit. I will close out the deliverable, merge this all back in, and then we'll go into the prototype. We'll kind of get rid of a bunch of this other stuff that we were prototyping with the diff match patch, back up to kind of up here. And then we'll actually do the kind of thing that we were doing initially before we had to fix this up, and we will do the full thing here, getting the kind of the different feeds, comparing them, and spitting out the episodes that like kind of are different and match and whatnot. And then we'll be able to kind of write up some information and work on the Twitter aspect of it. So let me tag at 30. All right. Yeah. So that sounds like a plan. And I've been coding this entire thing without switching back to this monitor, which is just great. So I did it on the values, so that's amazing that I did that. So let's recap what we were doing, since you couldn't see any of it. So all I did, so I had added this exception here. I re-updated this to... damn, that's terrible. I re-updated this to have the proper weights with the scores, and threshold, and I moved the threshold here. I recreated this and adjusted this and added this in here. Yeah, that is probably really annoying, but no one's watching it, and you never know if anyone actually will. So that's unfortunate, but not much I can do about that now. Everything is kind of in the commit history, so if you look at it real quick, and so just kind of look through this. So here, that was the first thing we did at the beginning. Then I have two. Looks like this is just a complete mess. So I added the weights with this, and then I added the weights in here. What is the second one? Oh, so this is where I was talking. So this is that. So yeah. So I was talking about these different weights that I was kind of doing, and I kind of adjusted them there. And then so this is what so then I actually played around. I adjusted the weights, which you'll see when I remove the prints and stuff. So these are the final weights that I ended up going with. Git show This is the final threshold I went with. So this is that new episode data where I rewrote this description, different length in seconds, slightly different title, changed that. And here you'll see these are the results of when I was running it that I was kind of getting with the different weights and stuff. And I did talk through that. And then I had added this in here. And then the last one was just removing prints. So apologies for in the comments. So apologies for not really showing that all that well, but you know, if you ever watch this and you're one of the few, you'll know. So leave a comment, be like, I saw that. I saw what you did there. But yeah, next time we'll commit the stuff, clean, do and check out some of the prototyping and whatnot. So until then, see you.